I'm intrigued by this. Foreign affairs are always tricky to kind of capture the zeitgeist if you're not in the country where the story emanates from. Now, this is a clear-cut case, however, I'd like to think, where Ukraine does have ramifications. It's on our doorstep, relatively speaking. It's in Europe, in our continent. And, of course, they are a friend of this nation. So I think our affinity, I know there are some kind of curious Putin fanboys out there who see no wrong and think tough old Vlad is the way forward. He's a good Iron Man for his country. Parking that aside, let's just try and be objective about this. Is this genius international manoeuvring from President Trump, or is this his Chamberlain moment, the peace in our time moment, caving in, an appeasement, and we know what followed back in the 1930s. The US leader and President Trump have begun, and President Putin have begun talks to end the war in Ukraine 3 years after the full-scale invasion by Russia. Mr. Trump has held a 90-minute phone call with his Russian counterpart. This happened yesterday. It's the first confirmed contact between the pair since Donald Trump returned to the White House in January. He later spoke with President Zelensky of Ukraine and said that Kiev wanted a deal to bring the fighting to an end. Mr. Trump said, "I've just had lengthy and highly productive phone calls with President Vladimir Putin of Russia." He wrote this on his Truth Social platform. He says, "We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We've also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiating immediately. And we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation, something I will do right now." So he's true to his word. He's spoken to Mr. Putin. I would imagine that was a slightly longer phone call. And he's now spoken to Zelensky. Now, some have suggested that concessions on Ukraine have essentially just played into the hands of President Putin. This is at a time you will be familiar, I'm sure. You don't have to have your eye fully on the ball to realise there's a lot of intelligence out there that says Moscow is preparing its military for a major war in Europe. And back to the Chamberlain comparison, you appease, you give an inch, and somebody takes not just a yard, but a couple of acres. And that's perhaps what we're talking about. Some have suggested that concessions on Ukraine will have played into Vladimir Putin's hands. And of course, this could cause the problem. US defense chiefs have told European counterparts that Ukraine's dream of returning to its pre-2014 borders was an illusionary goal, and that Kiev's wish for NATO membership was not realistic. This is going to be a royal kicking for Mr. Zelensky. Trump's statements are widely seen as a major victory for Putin and a devastating blow for Zelensky. How are you assessing this? I think the wider question, and I think what Trump's tried to do with Israel is admirable, and I think he's singing from the correct hymn sheet on that. It's clearly not without all manner of issues along the way, but I think the direction of travel is sound. I think this is a whole different ballgame. We could have a problem here. Donald Trump, I believe, has a greater interest in appeasing Russia than he does of Ukraine. I mean, that seems to be where the smart money is, and that could be a huge problem. 0344 499 1000. Give me your assessment of what do you think is likely to happen here. Because, of course, there will be an overview that says, well, look, it's stopped. They've all gone, yep, no more to see here. Where all the weapons are going, all the military are being removed, everybody back to basics, and we can carry on with our lives. Apart from this bit of Ukraine, which will be kind of a little bit more Russian than it used to be. That's potentially the upshot of this. Is that inevitable? Is that the only way? Everybody wants to come out like all of these things. Everybody has to come out as the victor, right? Okay, nobody wants to come out as, you know, unfortunately we lost this one. That ain't going to happen. Both of those leaders, Zelensky and Putin, will need to stand on a big podium at some point, possibly together. I don't hold your breath on that one, but certainly individually, they will need to stand on a podium and say, we won. Perhaps not in those words. That's what they will need to say. Can Trump's intervention here achieve this? 0344 499 1000. Will Donald Trump achieve peace in our time?